So, yes, without further ado, we'll go through. Yay! There we go. Yeah, so again, quick organization. We are QABC, QA Beginners Club. We are here for people looking to change career, looking to get a foot in the door with testing, want to know a bit more about testing, or if you have just become a tester, give you a bit of guidance, any advice, or if you would like, no. Find the button. There we go. Where was I? Yeah. So again, we're like at that pedestal to get your stepping stone to get you from a change career, get into testing, and then learn more about testing. That's exactly what we're here for. So the best thing you can do is just ask questions. And if there's anything we don't know, we can come out and find you. We've got a Slack channel which will be popping up on here. But again, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. Twitter's probably our more popular one. So if you've got a question, hang on, then someone will come back to you, because we've got a good following, especially of like senior and professional testers as well. So they'll have to answer all your questions. There are some house rules. There we go. So again, this is always a safe space. Respect everybody's views. Everyone's always welcome. This event will always be free. Unless you want to chip in, $1.05, that's absolutely fine. If there's anything that has offended you or something that struck you as a bit of concern or you're not happy with, please come speak to Ken, Gabby, or myself, and we'll get everything resolved. However, if rules are continue going to be broken, we've not done it yet, touch wood, I've got my own new virtual people, you will be banned from future events. But I'd say we've never had to do that, and we don't intend on doing it again, because this is a space for everybody to come and learn and obviously feedback to us. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Beth, our guest speaker for today.
You're missing free pizza. It was lovely. I hope you're having the snacks. So, yeah, my name's Beth. I have been in software testing since 2008. So that is a long time. You do the maths. I've got the world's shortest slide deck, because really it's not really about me, it's about what I can help you guys with and answering any questions that you might have. So that is really why I'm here. But I will give you the potted, very brief history. If I may. Oh, wow. Yeah, so
Camera one.
Okay. So, yes, so I started out in testing in the same way that a lot of people do or did back in the day, which is falling into it from a completely different angle. So, I was not techie. I hadn't grown up playing with computers since I was, 2 weeks old. And I happened to be working as a project coordinator, which was what I wanted. All I cared about was using my skills to make the most money that I could. After that, I graduated. I was like, what can I do that's lucrative? And that was, I could touch type and I could use Excel. And I wasn't completely computer illiterate. So I got a job as a project coordinator. And that meant managing Excel spreadsheets and being a bit of a PA. But it happened to be for that company there, a company called BJSS, who I knew nothing about. Didn't know anything about the world of consultancy, but BJSS are now kind of a global, award-winning, one of the major tech hirers in Manchester, also in Leeds. They've got offices all over the world. They are huge and they are fantastic. And they taught me how to test. So the story is, I was working as a project coordinator and I happened to get chatting to people like you do. You get your informal relationships with people, don't you, where you're having a chat over coffee or whatever. And a guy called Chris Moran, who was then leading the testing on a particular project, needing somebody who could string a sentence together to help rewrite some test cases, because they were a consultancy and the client didn't like the test cases that had been written. So he said, can you stomach being in a very small room with 3 very sweaty men in the heat of summer to rewrite these test cases? And I said, eventually, I said yes. I thought, why not? So over time, a bit like you were saying earlier, you look at these test cases, you look at what they're saying, and instead of just rewriting them, you start to ask questions. And I started asking questions like, this test script says this, that the application does this, but this one says this, what's right? Why should that happen? So the kind of fast forward a few months, and they start to think, you've got, as a question asker, you've got what we need to be a good tester. And that is definitely one of the building blocks. Ask lots of questions and be willing to learn. So they did ask. They asked me if I would like to join the team of that project as a tester. And at the time, I was the only person in the company's history, I think then it was about 15 years, to go from what they call a non-billable, so a kind of admin type role, into a billable role where I was being sold to clients. And I stayed on that particular project, which was a foreign exchange trading platform that was at the time responsible for 50% of the world's FX trading. So yeah, that sounds super impressive, but a lot of what I was doing was playing on enormous terminals and pressing a big buy button and pressing a big sell button. It was really fun. So I kept saying yes, and then they asked me if I wanted to be test lead on that project, and I kept saying yes. And then they asked me if I wanted to go work for a commodities trader and various different organisations, and I kept saying yes please. And then I went out to work in New York for a while for BJSS, and then very quickly realised that there's no place like home and came back to Leeds.
So just before I continue, can you come back a bit more this way, just close to that microphone? Sorry.
Oh, can people not hear me?
Yeah, that's fine. They can scratch you, but I think you'd be close to that.
Better?
Yeah.
All right. So yes, so I stayed there for 8 years, and then I decided I wanted to try contracting, because as a lot of people that work for consultancies know, or they make that jump from working for a consultancy to going contracting, because you're doing the same kind of thing, you're working for different clients, but you're the one that's making the extra money. So I formed my own company called Asker Software Testing, and that was me putting my maiden name and my married name into a Scrabble word ungerupper and seeing what terms came out, and Asker was one of them. Marshall, so that's how that happened. And then I was contracting for 4 years, so I worked for a consultancy, I worked as a contractor, worked for a few different companies in Leeds doing that. Actually, my old boss at BJSS got me my first contract role. So he moved at the same time as me and said, come and work for me. And that is probably the biggest piece of advice I can give you, is maintain those relationships with people, because you will see Manchester is like Leeds in that it's a very small ecosystem of tech, and you always come across the same people. So yeah, always try and be a pleasure to work with, because it will be remembered. So yeah, contracted for 4 years, and then in 2019 I joined Smoothwall, who are a safety tech company. We keep millions of children safe online every day, and we are an awesome place to work. And there may come a time when we're hiring again, you never know. So at Smoothwall, let's think about technologies and things that I use. So I test all over the stack. We're like a cloud cloud-based, Azure-based place. So I test in kind of microservices, and then I might do some testing at the front end, and I do lots of things, whatever's the best, the most appropriate thing to test. That's what I'll be looking at. But recently, as a result of lockdown and kind of finding that working from home as someone that has a small child has actually been hugely beneficial for me to be able to connect with people in a way that was really hard to do when everyone was doing meetups like this all the time. I've been able to kind of branch out and start to teach other people stuff. So at the start of the year, I joined the Coders Guild as an associate trainer, and I was part of a team that wrote and delivered a pilot project for the UK government for software testing bootcamp. So we have helped lots of people, and there is someone on this call is one of those people, get their first job in software testing, and that's from lots of different backgrounds. There was 50% female representation in there and lots of diversity, so I'm really proud of that. And I also, as of last week, am a Test Automation University instructor. I was asked by Angie Jones, who you may not know her if you're not from the testing community. I'm obsessed with her, she's basically my hero. And she got in touch with me to ask if I would write a course about Postman. And she did not do that because I was the world's leading expert on Postman. That is not true. I think she did it because she wanted to give an opportunity to somebody. So I grafted on that, and if anyone would like to take my free Postman course to learn about that particular tool, learn a bit more about API testing, I would encourage you to do that, because it's a really growing thing, API generally, and it's a really good thing to learn if you want to get into testing. Next slide. I don't know how to do that. This is the final slide. I'm kind of done on the, this is me. Oh, and that was in Manchester. Sorry, it's all right. There was a brief one of Ministry of Testing. Yeah, test match. Yeah. So that's where Gabby and I both did a talk there.
Yes.
And I think that's still available. I think one of my talks is available for free, but I definitely advise, if you work somewhere that has any kind of training budget, the first thing you should spend that money on is a Ministry of Testing Pro membership, because there is so much good stuff in there. It's totally worth the few £100 that it costs, and it's worth trying to persuade your company to get you to do that. So I am here to help. I am here to honestly answer any questions that you'd have, and I'd love to hear them.
So I've got a question.
Go for it.
Just for anyone that doesn't know, can you talk a bit more about Test Automation University? Because I think that's a really great place for people to start.
Yes, it
I
is.
actually got sent, so that's what I got sent by. That's what I got sent to learn to use, like Start was that
Oh,
one.
okay. Test Automation.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that's what,
Okay.
I was just checking who it was, but yeah, that's what I got sent to Start.
So Test Automation University is a go-to resource for anyone that wants to upskill in automation. So it has nearly 100,000 registered users on that platform. Everyone that I know in the community is a user of that platform, me included, and it is led by industry professionals who write courses on any kind of topic that you can think of. There's something there on blockchain, there's something on security testing, there's stuff on Java, anything automation related is there, and it is all free. And I kind of can't believe that it's all free because it's so good. But I mean, you be the judge of that, and, if you happen to take my course. So definitely, there's lots of free Ministry of Testing stuff that you can delve into if you don't have the budget for pro membership. And Test Automation is my other must-have, go-to free thing that you can get involved in, for sure.
your role?
My role at Smoothwall, the fact that I can hire somebody and mentor somebody, which is something that I've wanted to do for a while. I kind of initiated a mentor program at BGSS, but it's hard when you're working for a consultancy to find the time to do that justice. And Smoothwall are a really supportive company who let me do things like this, give me the time and space to do things like the boot camp, and yeah, they are a really fantastic company to work for, so I love that. I love working there for that reason. And, you know, we help kids, so what's not to love about that? So, yeah, sorry. It's my question.
Well, I want to say anyway, obviously when you're working in testing, you're working on like CRMs or portal web pages and so forth. Is there like a spine where you can apply to all type of, let's say PBIs is the used word in the industry. You can apply to every single kind of task when you carry out a testing project or a testing task.
Yes, I guess so. I guess there's a core set of skills that as a tester you would use most of the time. So I've worked for small scale, like crowd-funded Internet of Things companies, really small, and then I've worked on huge teams of managing automation testers of like 20. And yeah, there's definitely, you probably don't want to hear this because you want to hear the technical stuff, but coming from a non-technical background, believe that the communication skills are so important. Networking is so important. Being able to get on with everybody, just be a good part of the team, and I don't really believe that any team should be argumentative or you have to kind of fight your corner with things. Like the teams that I've worked in aren't like that. It is a collaboration and you're working really closely with people, so you need to be able to ask questions. You need to be able to sometimes be pragmatic, not always get what you want, and be prepared to pick and choose the causes that you want to fight for. Yeah, in terms of skills, I definitely think exploratory testing is massive and will continue to grow. If you understand a bit about exploratory testing, expect to be asked that in an interview, and that will make you stand out if you've done it, if you know some stuff. I would say, and advice I gave you earlier, in terms of something that you can get a certificate in or something you can have on your CV that will make you stand out for other people, is something that shows you, so like a video or a profile that's not just a piece of paper, something that, like, if you were to do a talk or if you were to be present at something, so people know you as a person, not just two pieces of A4. That makes you stand out. But the other thing I definitely recommend is getting some sort of cloud certification. So, you know, I think I took Azure Fundamentals, and I think it was about £200 or something if you get the certification. Having that isn't directly related to testing necessarily, but you're likely to work in companies that are cloud-based, and if you have that little thing on your CV, it shows that you're invested in working for that kind of company. So yeah, if you've got the ability to, again, persuade people that training budget can go on cloud certification, then I'd probably encourage that over ISTQB. Does that answer your question? And I'll waffle.
Yeah, a little bit. But
Okay, let's catch up later.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about, obviously there's a lot of people currently probably are manual testers who are going to be looking to go into automation, as this is then currently the sought after skill at this moment in time. So to make that transition, what kind of advice do those kind of people?
Well, I think it's a realistic expectation to think that most of the jobs you are likely to do involve some level of automation. But it's not necessarily realistic to think it will be 100% automation. So if you can start small, if you can preferably automate something that is the thing you are, for this place you're currently working at, rather than doing a course on a abstract site that doesn't mean anything to your boss. The first automation framework I wrote was writing some UI front-end Selenium stuff for the site of the company that I was working for. And then they said, right, you can have time to do more of that. But I had to do that first chunk on my own. So be prepared to put the effort in, be prepared to start small. The other thing I would encourage you to do is have a look on my blog, which is called Beth the Tester. And in that I detail something that I did last year called a test automation portfolio. And that is kind of thinking about it. If you think about a UI designer or sometimes a dev, when they go to an interview, they've got a GitHub repo. They've got something, some portfolio that they can show off to say, this is what I can do. And as testers, we expect people to take our word for it. And sometimes, especially when you're just starting out, that's a really hard battle to win. So if you can pull out, oh, I'm trying to learn more about unit testing or Java, and here's an example of my code, can I walk you through it? That would, I mean, what do you think, Abby? Would that be slightly more persuasive than I've been learning Java?
Yeah.
Because that can mean anything, right? That can mean you spent 10 minutes.
It's easy in test, I think, to pop a few keywords in there, and you know, sometimes you won't even realise until they've started the job that they actually haven't got exposure. So yeah, it is weird, like you say, because there's a lot of other jobs in tech where you have to show examples, but tests, there's not kind of a rule that would come with a CV. But even if it's linking to a blog post, I just always say on the CV, you can link to anything externally, it makes a massive difference. It's just that standout piece, isn't it? Just a little something that makes you different from all the others.
Yeah, and it's something that I'd always check for. I did hear of someone that said, put a link in to say, view my GitHub, and you viewed their GitHub and there was nothing on it. Don't do that. Because people will look and people will find you out. And that person didn't get the job. But yeah, on my blog post, there are lots of examples of me doing this. So I set out to do an automation portfolio, and I did 7 different frameworks, and I learned all about them, and I detailed how I learned about them and who I asked for help, because you always ask people for help, and my struggles, and the GitHub repos are on there as well, along with some explanatory videos if I've got stuck on anything. So yeah, if you want to look at the code, if you want to look at how I did it, have a look on there. I think it was Ministry of Test published an article on it as well, and I'm thinking about doing a 99-minute workshop on it. Cool.
I've got like 3 questions from
Oh wow, okay.
So other than your course on Postman, what actually is that web Postman actually?
Oh, amazing.
What other course were you guys doing on TV?
Angie Jones's Java, Introduction to Java course. Also, Amber Race's, it's called Exploring APIs, Exploring Service APIs through Exploratory Testing, I think. So Amber Race and Angie Jones, but to be honest, I've never done a bad thing on there, because she curates everything, and you better believe that she fine-tooth combs all of that stuff, so it is really good quality.
Yeah, I quite often point people towards the introduction to Cypress.
Yeah.
Just because again, that is like a very
Yeah,
in-demand tool at the moment.
Yeah.
So.
Harry Drake, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's a good one.
So the second one you kind of answered. What language would you say you focus on if you are more interested in testing stuff?
I think if you want to stay working for the company that you're working for now, find out what tech stack they use
Java.
and learn that. It's a tricky one as a tester, because you're likely to change a lot throughout your career, so it's really hard to say just focus on one thing. But some of the kind of object-oriented languages, your kind of the Java, the .NET ones are the sort of fundamentals.
Yeah.
But the easier ones to learn, definitely your Cypresses, your we use something called Tycho, which is a bit niche, I think. But yeah, some of that JavaScript, that's definitely a great place to start. But it's really thinking about what you want to get out of automation. Do you want to stay in the job that you're in now? Do you want to get a wide breadth of skills that you can you can apply to lots of different places? Or do you want to specialise in I am just an API testing specialist and I'm going to nail that? Because it's not an overnight thing, learning automation. So it's really good to think about what your goals are and what you want to get out of it, because it's a long process.
If I can chip into that, so I was never a fan of automation when I was more manual testing.
Yeah.
It was like, well, you've got to do all code. It was like, it really put me off. And then when I started here at Code, I was introduced to Selenium IDE, which is a very simple, you kind of point and click, and then you play it back. And what you can do is you can actually edit the code as well. So if you've got like logon details, you can change those within the script as well. There's a different button you want to press rather than have to rewrite it. You can just learn which number you need to change, and then it will actually go click that one. It's a nice little beginning, and then
What was that
I don't know.
Selenium IDE.
Right, so yeah, it's a Chrome extension. I think it used to be Firefox, but I think they've stopped doing it now. I'm not too sure. And I've just learned also how to, if you want to like import an image or a file, there's like a little command you can copy and paste, and you just add in what's in your sort of file explorer. Just copy and paste it in, and somehow we'll do the rest for you. So to kind of get started is a really nice little tool. And then, because I'm now looking to go to Cypress as well,
Cool.
looking forward to doing it. I just need to get back into it again, because it's an easy. I find it a bit easier rather than doing like C# or stuff like that. I found this a bit easier to get into there, but unfortunately, the company I was with didn't really take to it, so it's like kind of stopped. Now, the company I'm with, it's like, yes, we want that. It's like, I can't really learn it all again. But it's a bit of an easier script to write, I found. And again, that's a nice little path just to kind of break yourself in. So that'd be my recommendation. If you all heard that.
And I definitely think there used to be a bit of snobbery about tools like Selenium IDE and some of the more easier to learn stuff. And now they've released such good versions of it that are so good. Like Cypress is great, and the new Selenium IDE is great. That it's like, why would you make life harder for yourself by learning some of the it's almost archaic, because technology's moved on so much that it is more kind of building blocks than binary. We don't work in binary anymore. We've moved forward a bit. So yeah, Cypress is a brilliant place to start. Absolutely. Yeah. And I did do that in my automation portfolio as well. So there's a GitHub repo on there. Any more?
I would like to know how you were able to deal with difficult developers.
Oh, that old shit. So
Go to POMBA.
I think it's something that in any job, regardless of whether it's developer, regardless of whether you're working in a shop, whether you're working in a fish factory, I've done all these things. There is always going to be someone that you might not get on with, or someone that everyone basically thinks is a bit of a dick. But try and not take it too personally and let it come with your skin, and just try and work with them rather than against them. Because sometimes, if you're that one person that can really get on with that guy when everyone else struggles to, you can get a lot out of that. So yeah, it isn't always easy. It really isn't. And sometimes it's about finding out about the company and the culture of the company that you work for. Because there's definitely some companies that are just not that great to employees. They're fewer and farther between in tech than some other industries. But yeah, working for a company where there's a good culture means you can call things out like, this person is making life hard for everyone. And that is something that I have done. I have said, this person needs to look up what psychological safety is and take it seriously. And they did, and they learned, and now they're great. So yeah, but be careful. Confrontation it doesn't help anyone. in my experience, if you fight aggression with aggression, it doesn't end, very really ends well. And sometimes leaving and seeing what other options are out there, if it gets that bad, tech is, once you get that foot in the door, tech is a brilliant place where you don't have to suffer working for a terrible company for long because you are in demand. Would you have
I agree with something you said before, which I absolutely agree with, where trying to get developers to understand that you're work with them, you're not there to catch. This seems to be still a bit of a culture, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like, if they think you're there to kind of catch them out with their work, it's like it's the complete opposite. We want it to be the best.
Yeah.
This is why we try, again, as QAs, and I suppose as testers as well, we do try and ask so many more questions up front. And this again, kind of why acceptance criteria, I think, comes into play as well. If you all agree to this, work around that. We are there to want their careers to be the best it can be before it goes out. You have to go like 2 or 3 times you find things. I'd rather find those things when they're local, when they do a demo, rather than it then comes through to me and go, I found 16 bugs, what are you doing? Rather than having that communication up front with them, to work with them. It's like, because the company I'm now with, since we've been doing that methodology, our bugs in line should decrease by 50% from when I first started working with them. And it's like, it's already paid for myself. There's something my CEO kind of, it's like, that's kind of nice. Again, because it's not me that's doing it, it's because we're all working together. There's no like knife behind our back waiting to catch them out. It's like handshake, let's work together, let's make this the best we can. So when you're saying to work with them, you're absolutely right. Like, we're not there to work against them. So sometimes difficult because we're in that mindset. So that's not
it is. But sometimes it's about realising your own mindset as well. I remember interviewing a tester and I said, what do you like about being a tester? And they said, telling developers that they're wrong. I ain't working with you. So sometimes it's about what you can contribute as well. If you're someone that's like, oh, I see you're really like snowed under, so let me take that meeting for you, or let me, you're part of a team, and asking an interview, what's your company culture like in relation to what's your culture of quality like? Am I sat in a different room from the developers? Is there an us and them culture that you can try and sniff out? Or are you embedded into a team of engineers who are all responsible for quality, you're all working together, you all want the same things, and then you find the developers that you work with in that kind of company are the ones that aren't idiots, aren't constructive, and they are genuinely, in my experience anyway, lovely to work with. I love working in tech because it's just full of like-minded and interesting and thoughtful, considered people.
Just on that, Beth, currently I work with some developers which are really friendly. I've not had any conflicts. I'm probably quite lucky, but I think something for anybody who want to build a good relationship with your team, I think things like team bonding, lunches, maybe nights out or whatever. If you can build a relationship externally, then that will definitely improve the internal relationship. So I think that's something that people might want to consider to moving forward. Or if they want to build a strong team ethic or relationship.
You're very lucky to have no conflicts. Fair play to you.
Let's touch it. I was kind of going to ask a question. You touched upon it already, but with asking if they're embedded and things like that. But is there any, I suppose, red flags or key things that you would maybe look out for at interview? To suppose make sure you're ending up in that good company culture.
I would always ask about training. I'd always want the company to be invested in training because I think the rabbit hole that a lot of testers get find themselves in, particularly at the start of their career, is they join a company and they might be the only tester there, they've come from somewhere else, and they're not given the opportunities to learn that they should be. So I really want to learn automation, but my company won't give me the time to do it. They won't give me any money for conferences or the tools that I need. So many testers find, you were telling me earlier, Gabby, a lot of testers find themselves in that situation. Whereas if you work for the likes of Auto Trader, who are invested in things like mentorship and training and being able to change roles rather than being pigeonholed into what you're doing, things like that, you could probably find a way of understanding the interview and getting a feel for if that's the right company that does that. They're the ones that will invest in you and want to see you thrive, rather than just go and do one thing forever because that's what we want.
Definitely. I always say to candidates, the interview is such a two-way process, and if you fall into the dynamic of I just need to impress them and I want to get this job, but you are also interviewing them. And like you say, the sport for choice in tech, you just make sure that you are qualifying and asking questions early doors, because at least then you're not, it's hard once you start a job, then you do feel the commitment to needing to stay. So, your skills are in demand. Find what they're all about.
And speaking as someone who has hired, or, it wasn't my decision, but I tried to make it happen, a junior tester who was like, this week, the things that they said that stood out were, I've got a Raspberry Pi and I like mucking about with it, and a genuine kind of passion for learning about testing, being involved. I see this person on Twitter, I know that they've got a blog, I know they're interested, and they're not just doing it because it's a job that pays well. So those are the things that, and having a GitHub repo, test automation portfolio. If I saw that on the CV, I'd be like, this is amazing. So yeah, there is work involved to get that first foot in the door. There is, because it's a lucrative industry and a lot of people want to work in it, but it's so worth it. And I would love to hear from all of you guys in 6 months, a year, saying, yeah, we've got a job. It's awesome, we love it. Because most testers do love it. It's not an industry like teaching or nursing where people get burnt out and they think, what did I do this for? What did I do my PGCE for? What did I spend all this time training for because I hate it and can't wait to leave? Testers love what they do. It's a brilliant job. It's a brilliant, lucrative, safe kind of career to work in. Don't you find?
Exactly. I think I find a bit of, here's what I like working with developers, is to get them all. Because when a live release is done and you get feedback from clients saying this is amazing, this is great, you kind of just like a little knowledge of it, kind of like a little no words said, just that little. Then they get on board. It's like, yes, working with a QA and then working with me really pays off.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Do we have any questions from?
Just double check the chat, maybe.
I would say, does any of our virtual people have any questions? Please feel free to come off mute because we can hear you. We want to see if it really works. Please. Go on, Craig. You were all over it before.
It was very interesting thinking with Chris.
Have you got any questions?
No, I'm just an interested party actually from a long way away. I used to live in Manchester 10 years, until 2016 I lived in Manchester for 10 years. I now live in Germany.
Oh wow.
And I am testing in Germany, but there is actually no community for testers like there exists in Manchester. So you're very lucky to have the testing community there and the Manchester digital setup. And I miss it a lot actually. So I was actually out of testing for 5 years for various reasons, from 2016 to 2021. And I found it moved forward so much in 5 years. It was incredible. And I've been left behind basically by the pace of development. So in a way, even though I'm an experienced tester, I'm also in a way feeling like a new tester, like new to the industry, and which is why I joined in today listen to you guys, actually. So.
Thanks, Alex. Now it's good to have maybe from different perspectives and also from overseas as well, which is really, really cool. Great, QAC is definitely officially international. So it's kind of for any new starters, is there anything you would kind of advise that you've had some experience?
From my side,
Yeah.
it was very similar to what Beth was saying. I worked for a bank initially, a long time ago, and I worked in various administration departments. And I ended up being a jack of all trades in admin, basically, as far as the system goes. And our IT department, who had the test team, needed to fill a gap. They had a resource space available. And we went for interviews, and because I had this blend of all-round experience, then I was like a perfect candidate for them, because I could be testing all parts of the system. And I also brought some a little bit of unique experience that they were missing as well. So that was how I got into testing.
Nice.
When you leave school, you don't leave school thinking I'm going to be a tester. I'm not going to be a tester. It just happens for many people. You just end up falling into it, and you find your way. And as you both said, it's a mindset. It takes a certain person to be a tester.
Yeah. All right.
And then, you have it or you don't have it. And if you do have it, then you do it for the rest of your life.
It just comes naturally.
This is what I found. Yeah, it just comes naturally. It's a niche role, and I enjoy it a lot. And as you said, you're working to make systems better. You're not working against people.
Exactly.
And definitely social skills and collaboration skills are key at the moment. It's almost as important as technical skills in the interviews. When you're being interviewed, it's what they're looking for: being a team player, getting on with people, not being disruptive, for example, diplomacy, and these types of soft skills are huge, especially because of the corona and lockdown, and it's enforced this.
Yeah, so something that Beth mentioned before is like what you did about kind of being like diplomatic. Is like, how do you tell a developer they're wrong?
Yeah.
What is the nicest way? It's like, you're not wrong. You could just do it better. Kind of switch on its way, which I've kind of learned over the years. It's like, okay, don't use negatives, use positives.
Yeah.
Even
And
though
I'd
in a
always
negative way.
I'd always make any comment about the work and not about the person.
Yeah.
So I would always say, often I preface things with things like, this might just be me, or I've probably got the environment wrong, but can we just take a quick look at this? And then I'm definitely a fan of the Stuart Day approach to not creating bugs unless you absolutely have to. Like you say, going and talking to your developers, just hearing what they think about things and working together to come up with the right solution. And that often just calms the waters a bit, because it must be really hard if you've developed something and it's you're really proud of it and you think it's great. You give it to someone, within 10 minutes they come back to you to say, there's a critical bug, this is rubbish. That who's going to react well to that ever in life? So yeah, it's definitely getting in there earlier before they've invested all that time and effort.
Yeah.
Actually is a better way.
Might have to take psychology as well.
Yeah, or do. Testers, it's psychologically, there's a lot that can help how to work with people.
I think there's a good culture as well, is where try and eradicate the sort of blame game.
Yeah.
So again, if you do come across a bug and you can't decide whether it's like a showstopper or something that can maybe let this one go through, but it's not going to stop in user journey.
Right.
So you then we'll discuss with the like, so if you may have a bit of conflict with that, this is a showstopper, no, I don't think it is. Let's talk to the wider team. And then if the whole team's then in agreement, including like your product owner, a CTO, design whatever, they're going to go, okay, yes, this is a showstopper, and then if something happens, the accountability on the team, rather than going, actually, no, you made this call, it's all on you. Flip side is, if all we agree, this is not a showstopper, it can be raised as a separate ticket, but if it then goes out, things blow up, then the whole team go, yeah, we made this decision.
Yes,
and
agreed.
there's accountability, but then you then have to sometimes say, you kind of this, we're not blaming you, but we just want you to just raise and go, my bad, I will fix it and I will learn from it. But sometimes you have to kind of nudge and go, come on, maybe point the finger.
It's a tricky one because in some companies there really still is a blame the testers first kind of culture. I haven't really worked in many of those companies, and I would probably look on Glassdoor, and if I found any evidence of that, I wouldn't want to work for that kind of company. But that can happen, and then it immediately wants you to retaliate, right? But no, it wasn't me because you didn't do this. Whereas if there just isn't that finger pointing at all, if the fingers aren't pointed back at you, there's no need to point them back at anybody else. And our CTO at Smoothwall has a really nice saying that I like, which is two intelligent people can disagree. It's okay. It's okay to not agree on things. People do it all the time, quite safely. If you're in the right kind of environment, working environment, you can disagree with people all the time. It doesn't mean you don't like them. It doesn't mean there's any bad blood.
See, now it's coming all the time.
Intelligent.
I was just going to say.
I'm respect to disagreeing, my right honourable.
Yes.
I speak polite. Well, it was like, again, so during my interview where I'm with now, it's like the actual owner of the company said, "Oh, can you sort of guarantee that there's going to be no defects and is the whole thing going to be 100% bug free?" I just generally laughed and went, "No." It's like, if that's your expectation, you're going to be disappointed every single time. Something is going to get through there. No program, no nothing is 100%. We can make it the best it can be. That's what I'm here to do. And if the little things come through, it's not a showstopper, anything like that, but we'll address it. That's the right way to do it. Again, not kind of, this got through, well, that's a completely different area of what was built. You can't do it that way.
Definitely. It's always
set expectations.
Exactly.
It's always one of those things that you should push back on. If someone says, automate everything, or find every bug, then that's that needs to be challenged, that kind of thinking, because it's unfair on you. Those kind of expectations is just completely unreasonable. Any more questions? Any more? We've had loads of questions.
Yeah, we have to be back.
This is good.
This is good. Normally, we're always like, come on, someone with a question.
Anyone on Zoom, if you don't want to come off mute, that's fine. If you want to post a message in the chat, I shall read it out for you. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to pop in the chat and we'll get them read out for you and answered as quick as we can.
Or feel free to add me on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever if you want to ask me anything privately.
Definitely. We've got follow-up questions.
If you've never done auto testing before, I'd say it's the best place to work.
If you've never done automation testing before, what do you mean the best place? The best place to work? Or the
No,
best
just like websites or just where to get the best knowledge.
test automation best would be my starting point always, I can't think of a better
No,
better
and
place.
for free as well, because obviously, if you're not a tester yet and you're not being paid the salary, not everyone has a spare couple of £100 to be spending on courses. So there's no shame in taking up all the free opportunities first, 100%.
Just put it out on our QABC YouTube. There's a nice little presentation on
Yes,
Cypress,
we
which
have
as he
actually
just
shown
walks
that.
away, as Ken, we had like 3 parts. Hello again. Did on Cypress, kind of like a little introduction, beginner's guide for that, and like just actually show you a little bit of code you can just write to kind of get you started. I think there should be some links on there as well to more obviously in-depth ones. So again, there are all the courses you can do. Also, the World Wide Web's out there as well.
And something that I benefited from as well. Military testing occasionally do this thing. I think it's test.bash. It's called. That's the one that's about. It's just about the automation stuff. So they will give people a challenge, and then they'll show you, the people will present or demo how they got around this challenge, how they solved the challenge. And for me, that was great because everyone does it differently. And it just makes you realise, like with automation, there isn't always a perfect answer. And you're not necessarily doing it right or wrong. It's not a black and white thing. There's different ways you can learn. And seeing how somebody else does it is a brilliant way to learn. Like, I learned tons of stuff about how people use Postman and stuff. So like, oh, I just organise my files like this. And I was like, where have you been all my life? Like, of course I need to go and do that. So yeah.
And Chris, what would be beneficial? I don't know if you're going to do it anyways, just have some links at the end of this maybe so we all can refer back to it.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I can put them into the. I think we can still. Did you join up via Meetup?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so I
fine.
think we can like message all attendees, can't we? So we can
Exactly.
post that.
Yeah, so let me know what you're interested in.
Yeah.
And I'll post them out too.
Sure.
So,
Well, I think we've done very well there for
we
questions.
have
I'm gonna sit down and enjoy this retro.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's what we desperately need, don't we? We just need ideas now for the next couple of events, what people actually find interesting and what's going to be truly beneficial as well.
Exactly. We'll take a little bit of a break because
Yes.
I think we might want to take a break or go grab a beer, grab some, unfortunately now cold pizza, but I would stick
I
it in the
like
microwave
pizza.
maybe. We're going to leave the slide on there for you, but we'll leave you with this lovely little thing. Please, please, please add some stuff to that retro board. As I mentioned before, I'm talking about the side, I'm around here, what am I doing? Yeah, please add some stuff to the retro board because again, the whole point of KBC is we're here for you guys. So if you don't tell us what you want, we can't provide what you need. So yeah, please do a scan that and please have some notes. That would be fantastic. So yeah, see you all in about 15 minutes.